If you remember Tan Gohan, Low Poly Vegeta, and the Shooting Piccolo minigame, then you grew up playing the Budokai spin-offs. But which one? Because there were 3 completely different games, and in this video we're going to compare each of them. But first, let's set the scene. The Budokai trilogy of games developed by Dimps are bona fide classics. Their fast-paced combat, ever-growing roster of characters, and respect for the source material set the benchmark for what a Dragon Ball fighting game should be. But by 2004, the original trilogy had concluded with Budokai 3, and the flagship baton was passed to Spike and the Budokai Tenkaichi series. However, Dimps would continue to work on Budokai spin-off games for another 4 years. So what are they, and did they live up to the original trilogy? Well, let's begin with Shin Budokai, released in spring of 2006 for the PlayStation Portable. And just like many PSP spin-offs, the goal here was to scale down the console experience and adapt it to a portable format. And I think overall Dimps did do a pretty good job. As expected, the graphics have been scaled down, but it's still undeniably a Budokai game. And the anime's angular art style did allow Dimps to reuse the character models from Budokai 3, only this time their mouths didn't actually move.
Let's go again!
Unfortunately, the character roster itself did see a major downgrade. Unlike Budokai 3, which had 43 playable characters, Shin Budokai only had 18, and only 2 brand new characters in Janemba and Picon. Many of the characters do retain their transformations, but they're only allowed 1 single transformation per match, so you have to pick them in the menu. Hey, is it me, or does Gohan's Elder Kai form just looks like he got a spray tan? The gameplay itself is based on Budokai 3 with a few key differences. Most of the interactive elements like Dragon Rush have been removed. The Super and Ultimate moves are still available for most of the characters, but this time the animations have been toned down. Shin Budokai also introduces a new technique known as Aura Burst. This lets the characters dash around at high speeds, doing combos and stunning their opponents. There are 7 stages, 5 have been repurposed from Budokai 3. This time around, the environments have been simplified, with many of the background elements consisting of flat objects. There are 2 new stages exclusive to Shin Budokai, the Ruins and the Candy version of Hell from Fusion Reborn. And speaking of which, instead of recapping the anime like the mainline game, Shin Budokai focuses on retelling Movie 12 as part of its campaign mode dubbed Dragon Road. This is a slightly reworked retelling which allows for the game's entire roster to feature in the story. Most of it does consist of characters using text boxes in between battles. However, Dragon Road does allow you to take slightly different paths which do eventually end up in the same place, with you having to beat up Vegeta twice. In addition to Dragon Road, Shin Budokai also offers an arcade mode, a survival mode, and a time attack mode. Plus, this game does have a network battle mode which allows for local wireless multiplayer. Shin Budokai was well received by fans and sold over 400,000 copies worldwide, enough to warrant a sequel the following year. Shin Budokai 2, or Another Road as it was known in some territories, would add 6 new characters to the roster. Well, 4 of them are from Budokai 3, the only true new characters are Future Gohan and Bardock. Apparently Future Trunks is a new character, but I'm not sure he really counts. Plus, Goku and Cooler get 1 new transformation each. There are also 3 new stages, Destroyed Future and the World of the Kais. Another Road has also seen some gameplay tweaks. You can now move the camera to the side, allowing for this over-the-shoulder angle. You can also release ki in an aura that will make you invincible for as long as it lasts. Plus, there is also an Aura Burst Charge mode that will trigger each of the characters' unique abilities. And some of the special and ultimate moves have also been touched up and expanded. But the biggest difference in Another Road is the new campaign mode. This one is based around the events of the Majin Buu saga taking place in Future Trunks' timeline. It's an interesting concept, but you can tell just like the first game, certain elements of the story were forced together to feature all the characters on the roster. Another new feature is the field combat mechanic, which has you put together a team of fighters that fly around the world map protecting cities from the bad guys. This feature is a nice touch, even if it can get a bit repetitive, that and all the characters look like they came straight out of a PlayStation 1 launch title. Ah yes, everyone's favorite green team, Piccolo from Wish, and Cell. Jesus, these 2 boys are going at it.
No regrets, even if I lost.
I think this game added enough new elements and refinements to the Shin Budokai gameplay, however it would end up being the series' forgotten title. But the following year, Dimps would release not 1 but 2 new Dragon Ball games. The first was Burst Limit, and even though it was built on the foundations of Budokai, I see this game as more of a next-gen reboot or a continuation rather than a spin-off, which is why I'm going to dedicate a separate video to it in the future. Now, while Burst Limit was supposed to be Dragon Ball's first big outing on the HD consoles, Dimps also decided to give the PlayStation 2 owners one last Budokai game, except for some reason they decided to call it Infinite World. Now, unlike the PSP games which featured in-game footage in a cut with stills, Infinite World has its own pre-rendered opening consisting of all your favorite characters doing over-the-top things and Goku smooching a Dragon Ball. Just look at Omega Shenron showing off those pearly whites. The opening also ends on the biggest spirit bomb I have ever seen. Just think of the collateral damage. Okay, but how good is the game itself? Well, Infinite World is very much made from the Budokai parts bin. The game uses Budokai 3 as a foundation and looks almost identical to that game. The character roster is almost identical in size to Budokai 3, however, Kid Goku, Supreme Kai, Oob, and Cell Juniors have been swapped out for GT Goku and Vegeta, Great Saiyaman 2, Pikkon, Pan, Janemba, Baby Vegeta, Super 17, and Sen Shenron. Now, as for the stages, they have been directly lifted from Budokai 3. The combat is a mix of several games. The base is still very much Budokai 3, however, many of the shortcuts and combos from Shin Budokai have made their way into this game, along with the Aura Dash. The Hyper mode has been replaced by Burst mode from Burst Limit. The Beam Struggle and Dragon Rush modes from Budokai 3 have been removed, which means the ultimate moves can now be used freely. Many of the characters have also been given new special moves. The capsule system from Budokai 3 has also been reworked, forcing a certain number of slots for each capsule type. Many of the usual modes like Duel and Training have made a return, however the Tournament mode is noticeably absent for some reason. But once again, the biggest change comes from the Campaign mode. This time around we're back to covering the entire saga. Now, Budokai 1 focused on anime-accurate cutscenes. Budokai 2 had a board game, while Budokai 3 had you flying around a world map. And once again, Infinite World borrows elements from each of those games. The story plays out on a board game style map, however this time you can move around freely. Also, can we take a moment to appreciate this absolute banger of a tune on the world map? Then again, knowing this game's composer, he probably stole it from somewhere else. The key story elements are told through cutscenes. They reuse models from the game, but in a pre-rendered environment, giving them better fidelity. Here are a couple of comparisons between these cutscenes and the ones from the original Budokai.
Let it go.
But cutscenes aside, most of the action still consists of you running from one battle to the next. However, the one thing that sets Infinite World apart are the mini-games. That's right, remember that one random special beam cannon mini-game in Budokai 1? Well, Dimps decided to expand on this concept in Infinite World. For example, we start the story with Raditz stealing Gohan, but instead of jumping straight into the battle, you do a mini-game which has you running around collecting shiny objects. Oh wow, look, it's the farmer's car. And it's damn sturdy. Now that's Japanese build quality for you. After the Raditz battle, Goku does a mini-game where he runs along the Snake Way. Just good luck trying to clear those shortcuts. This is followed by a bubbles catching mini-game where the monkey litters the entire planet with landmine bananas to trip Goku, and then we get this brick shooting mini-game. Yes, as you can tell, many of these mini-games are pretty much the same thing. I know Namek's about to explode, but I've always wanted to try this cartoon meat on the bone.
No way!
The world map from Budokai 3 also gets recycled with these flying mini-games, and there are a bunch of rhythm button matching games. Usually these are reserved for training sequences like Goku on the ship, Vegeta in the gravity room, and the hyperbolic time chamber. My favorite of these is the Gohan and Piccolo training. I like the little details like Gohan getting fried if you miss the buttons, and his wisp of a Masenko. But my favorite have to be the first-person shooter mini-games like the one where you have to throw the Destructo disc at Frieza. And it's nice to see some of the mini-games are presented from the villain's point of view, like this one where Frieza finger blasts Piccolo to death. Plus we get this one where Cell has to escape Piccolo using Solar Flare. And you can tell the developers really had a love for the source material. Like, where else would you play a TN Tri-Beam mini-game? The campaign covers all of the Z sagas, GT, and a few of the most popular movies and specials. specials. It also has a lot of replay value because many of the battles are only unlocked after you've beat the campaign the first time around. Overall, I would say this is the most comprehensive story mode out of all the Budokai games and a standout feature of Infinite World. And so there we have it, the Budokai spin-offs compared. And I think all three of these games are pretty decent. Shin Budokai successfully transitioned the series to handhelds, its sequel expanded the character roster and gameplay, while Infinite World arguably gave us the most complete Budokai experience to date. But it is a shame that game kind of slipped under the radar due to burst limits. However, it would end up being a fitting swan song for the DIMP series of Dragon Ball games. Wait, what? They did a Dragon Ball Evolution game the following year, and it wasn't even that bad? Well, I guess that's a topic for another video. In the meantime, please let me know your thoughts about the Budokai spin-offs. Which is your favorite, and do you prefer Infinite World to Budokai 3? As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to all my existing patrons. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.